Okay, well, we're going to move on now, and we're going to talk about a little bit about ethics. And, in Capstone, with ethics, the biggest concern for a paralegal is to not get caught up in something that the attorney is doing. One of the concerns that there is a lot of times, you've got to work for your boss, whoever your boss is, in whatever position that you're in. But, there are instances where there's things that you've learned that you consider to be unethical. Now, one of the things you will learn as far as the best thing to do, and I've learned this even in the classroom, is you don't call people out in the midst of other people. Even in an online class, it is just not good practice to say something to someone. Now, I've had students come to me and say, so-and-so copied my paper. But it's usually not wise to call them out right in front of the whole class. And that's what I found. I found it's better to deal with somebody one-on-one. So if you've got questions about something that your attorney's doing in your firm and you just don't quite understand it, rather than just sit back and let it happen, sometimes it might be to everybody's advantage to say, well, how does this work, and can you explain how this works from an ethical standpoint to me? Because I've got some issues in my mind, at least, with what I was taught and what I'm seeing here. So, for example, some easy examples. A friend of mine got in some trouble for representing the wife in a divorce, and then they just dismissed the divorce, and then he came back later and represented the husband in the same marriage. Well, if he's previously represented the wife, then he's not allowed to represent the husband later, and so that can be a major problem. Fortunately for large firms, they never have any conflicts. That's a joke. Somehow they seem to get away with just about anything. But solo practitioners, if you're working for a single lawyer in a small town or something like that, a lot of them tend to get burned on various different things, and a lot of times it's on things like this where you're dealing with small little issues that can come back to bite you. Another thing is accounting issues. You always want to keep that checkbook current, up to date and things like that. If you see anything like that you feel like you need to alert the attorney, very important. One of the big things too that we talk about is the unlawful practice of law by paralegals. Okay, one of the basic rules is never give advice. You don't give advice. Never give advice. Okay, don't give legal advice. Okay, don't do it. That's the lawyer's job. Your job, take the information, organize things, help the staff get the documents prepared, and make sure it's in a final form so that the case can proceed. But don't sit there and start thinking, and I'll tell you, it just almost invariably happens in an office. The lawyer's always in court. I just need to answer this one question. You may think you know the answer. Well, just don't fall victim to that where you think you can give legal advice. You should never do it. Also, I've had people say, well, I'm going to go out and set up my own independent paralegal firm. Okay, well, you can't really do that in Indiana. You want to be very careful about this. A few states allow it. I think it's Florida that I know of that allow for people to go to a paralegal just to get documents prepared. They want to do their own divorce, they want to do their own bankruptcy, whatever. And there are provisions in bankruptcy for document preparers. But the problem that you get into all too often is you give people advice, and so then you slip over that line once again. So it's a very careful area that you want to be involved in. One of the things you got to be concerned about is What are judges? Judges are all lawyers. That lawyers are defensive of their turf, so they don't want like interlopers. So these independent paralegal firms don't really work in Indiana. Another thing on this, though, is you can be subcontract, and this is happening. Subcontract paralegals. Okay, subcontract. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means you still work for a lawyer, okay? But a lot of good young paralegals are, they're like, well, I don't want to move away from Frankton, Indiana. But you can set up a firm at home, but you've got to go out to the different law firms. You could go to Tipton, Anderson, Marion, Muncie, and a lot of these different small counties around. And, you could get, contracting, just like carpenters and people like that, where you can prepare the bankruptcies for a guy. Guy's got, let's say, just a slew of bankruptcies coming in, and he needs some help on preparing those bankruptcies. Well, you could do that for him, but you're still working for a lawyer. You're using your own computer, using your own software, your own paper, all these different things, but you get paid X to work on these things from your house. A lot of people are going to that, and it's affordable for lawyers. Where is the problem with that, though? There is always a problem. You see something good, it's always a two-sided coin. There's a good side and a bad side. The bad side, here again, you can get into a conflict, okay? How does that work? How can that raise its ugly head? Well, okay, it would be like this. Okay, you work out of your house, okay? You're working as a contractor, and you're working for Joe over here in, let's say, Tipton, okay? And he's got a client named Fred, and he's doing a divorce for Fred, okay? Well, you're also working for, let's say, Steve over in Kokomo, and he's a lawyer, okay? So Joe's a lawyer, Steve's a lawyer, okay? And you're working for Steve as a contract paralegal, and Steve is representing Sarah, the wife of Fred, in the same divorce. Well, you can't do that, okay? That's trouble right there, okay? So these are the kind of ethical dilemmas that you can get into. Now, I think that it can be good to work for different guys in different small cities. I've already explained in another class that I'm teaching about how screwed up I think the state of Indiana is because of we've got just way too many small counties like Tipton that have circuit courts and so forth. But that's how it is. I mean, I'm not going to ever see that change probably in my lifetime. But it is just a terrible cash drain on the state, and we always wonder, they talk and talk and talk about things that they can do to save money. Well, that would be a big thing, is just reorganize the whole state government and cut the number from 92 down to like 45 or something. But anyway, as it stands right now, you could work for Joe and you could work for Steve. It's just that you've got to be careful and do your own internal conflict checking, So if you're working on Steve, what are some things I mean, you get his phone number. So you got, let's say that what we said was Fred, right? And his phone is, XXX, whatever it is, and his address is, YYY, whatever it is, okay? And then you got Sarah over here, and, she has the same phone number. What's that tell you? Okay? And, you notice that Fred's wife's name is Sarah, okay? Uh-oh. Lots of things are starting to match up here, okay? So, same address, okay? Well, this is trouble, okay? So these are things that you've got to be very careful about if you're going to try to manage independent paralegal practice where you're a subcontractor with several lawyers, And sometimes that can be, like problematic. It can be a nice little cottage industry, though, if you can work all that out. One of the good things that I see is potential that you can meet fellow students and say, okay, well, we live in the same, basic region, and we'll work together and coordinate and share fees and things like that, and then spread the wealth, spread the work, but always have a gatekeeper in the firm that's in charge of making sure that there's no conflicts, okay? Very important, avoid conflicts, okay? Now, there are a number of cases out there, and it's my plan to scan some of these cases and put them up for you to look at, just to kind of help you along in terms of understanding. Also, my advice to you would be, if you took the ethics course, the Paralegal 200, get that book out, dust it off, and read over a few of those things and remind yourself of some of the things that I'm talking about here. So this is very important. So basically, that's the capstone there for this time. We want to make sure that we are always ethical. We try to use ethical methods. Best way to prevent it is to use some of these gatekeeping type of ideas. I think that there's some legal software out there, you might have read about this or learned about it in 203, that can do some of this fact matching about like Fred and Sarah and find out, if they're the same marriage, things like that. Even worse cases might be, defending a car wreck case for millions of dollars, and here you're already working for the plaintiff. So even the appearance, that you might share private information from one party to another attorney could be very damaging to your career. So you don't want to ever see that happen. Well, here once again we finished another one of these areas that you want to study. So look at your book. Look at your old book if you still got it, or some of your assignments that you wrote. Look at some of the resources that I'm going to put up in resources. Good place to look. So I'm going to scan a couple cases from Indiana, put them up in resources for you to look at, to kind of give you some ideas of what I've been talking about here. So you get the idea of how to avoid this in the future, because some of the things I'm telling you is for test preparation. Some of the things I'm telling you about are for life preparation. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this. I'll be coming back to you with another session here in just a little bit.